Oh, beautiful, full gracious skies, oh, amber waves of grain, purple majesty. I don't know the words. Above the something plain. America. Oh, America. Everybody, so to the Jones Show. I am he. It is the evening edition, baby. Oh boy, we are here. We are here again, and I'm trying to figure out why we're here again. But we're here again. It is a day which will live in infamy. The day is the day that the Alabamians went out in droves to vote for their conscience. They went out and voted for something and not someone. They went out there and voted against something and not against someone. For the weapons of our warfare are not carnal. We do not fight against flesh and blood, but against principalities, these powers in these high places, okay? They were fighting against the spirit or the system or the culture of rapeology and bigotry and xenophobia and all these things. And they were also fighting against those who were tribal people. Tribal people. That's people who vote no matter what the candidates say or do. They vote for their tribe. For instance, a party, the Republican Party or Democratic Party, they vote straight ticket because they stay true to the tribe. Phone didn't ring all day until now. They stay true to the tribe even if that tribe has some issues going on. 1 second here. Got to talk about this. Okay. I got to go and talk about this because this is very important. Sorry, y'all. The phone rang. What y'all saying here? Alabama, blue. Yeah, Come on. I'm going to switch. Yeah, I hear you. Roland Martin is going at it as well. Okay. Yeah. Purple Majesties. Yeah. Okay. All right. I used to hang around Alabama quite a bit. Those of you who live up north don't understand the politics of Alabama. Alabama is a strong Republican state, and it has voted Republican for the past, 15, 20 years straight. You ain't gonna get nothing more Republican than Alla to the Bama. I would frequent Alabama, Birmingham, and Montgomery towards the bottom. I went down there and visited our wonderful, prestigious school down there, where Mr. Peanut himself and Carver and there's these wonderful men who created that wonderful school. And I used to hang out in a little town called Demopolis. It used to be called Galleon, but it's called Demopolis now. And I would drive through Tuscaloosa, where the Mercedes car headquarters, what have you. So I know Alabama. I know the dirt, that red dirt, okay? I've been there, lived there, and hung out there, and I know the system, the politics, and being a black man is kind of difficult. All right. So what we saw in Alabama was not anything new, okay? Today it was new, but what we've been seeing in Alabama was not new. Jeff Sessions was snatched from Alabama by whom? President Donald Trump. And the reason why we're having the day that we're having today is because President Donald Trump, when he got in office, he vowed to clean up, drain the swamp. He promised the people, he says, I'm an outsider, I'm not a politician. He says, I'm not going to spend time golfing, Okay, I'm not going to do this, I'm not going to do that, I'm not going to do this. And then the very thing that he said he was going to attack is the very thing he had become. And then what he did was he pulled people from their congressional seats, he pulled people from their Senate seats and brought them into the White House and into his cabinet, which is why we're having these special elections for senators. All right, I'm catching you black folk up because you were too busy watching Empire. Okay, well, one of the seats that he snatched was Sessions, who was in Alabama, and made him the chief of the big cop. Okay, he's the big guy, the Attorney General. That seat was vacant, and so Steve Bannon, the bigot of all bigots, decided to rally for a man who had been accused of molesting a little girl, 14-year-old, and touching a lot of women, and being kicked out of a mall. And the Republicans never did like him anyway, but they were going to vote for him because they needed that seat. Steve Bannon rallied for him. Donald Trump decided not to say anything for a little while, and then they had a news conference, and while he was walking to the plane, he says, but the man said he didn't do it, so he said he didn't do it, which means he didn't do it. Meanwhile, he was telling all these other folk who had been accused of, they need to retire, they need to be fired, on and on and on, and that's why we have the Democrat man who finally resigned a couple days ago, Franken. The Democrats got together, many of them, and says, Franken, you've got to step down because we need to use you as a poster child for morality. So they says, if we come together, make you step down, it will show a message to the Republican Party that we're more moral than them, even though the Republicans are more evangelical, Christian, conservative, which means purity. But yet, while they're rallying around someone who has been accused of all these things that was even more dastardly than Franken. But they said, we're going to do this anyway. And bam, Donald Trump jumped in there, made a robocall. Hello, this is Donald Trump. Vote for Roy because we need that seat so that I can make America great again. Republican says, well, if the big cheese said it, then we've got to do it. And they went to the polls the best way they can. They closed their eyes, held their breath, and pulled the lever. Because they said, they really didn't want to do it. But because they are a part of a tribe. So this loss is a loss for Donald Trump and Steve Bannon. The Republican Party allowing these two men to run that party off a cliff into a foxhole. Oh my God. I'm trying to catch y'all up here. So from the time of January, actually it goes back to 2015 when Donald Trump was thinking about jumping in the race, he began to show y'all his immoral ways. Way before that bus tour with Billy Bush, way before that. He began to show y'all his immorality. He showed it to y'all all the way back in the 80s and 90s. His father showed it to you, okay? And so he jumped in the race. He won the presidency in spite of all of the nastiness we saw coming out of this man. Let's see, January 6th, I have a timeline here. January 6th, the U.S. intelligence community published its public assessment that the Kremlin had attempted to influence the election. January 10th, Sessions misleads Congress in his confirmation hearing. January 26th, Attorney General Sally Yates warns the White House that Flynn has not been truthful to the administration. Okay, January 27th, Papadopoulos is interviewed by the FBI and lies repeatedly, setting up his future guilty plea. January 28th, President Trump and Putin speak on the phone for 50 minutes, and Flynn attends that particular call. January 31st, Trump fires Yates. February 13th, Flynn is forced out purportedly for misforming Vice President Pence about his contacts with the Russians. March the 2nd, Sessions recuses himself from the Russian probe because of controversy surrounding his contacts. Okay. And May 8th, Trump tweets, the Russian-Trump collusion story is a total hoax. When will this taxpayer-funded charade ends? But then May 9th, Trump fires FBI Director Comey. May 11th, in an interview with NBC Lester Hope, Trump links Comey firing to the Russian investigation. He says, I was going to fire Comey. May 17th, Robert Mueller is appointed as a special counsel in this investigation. On June 15th, Trump tweets, they made up a phony collusion with the Russian story, found zero proof. So now they go for obstruction of justice. July 26th, the FBI raids Manafort's Virginia home. July 27th, Papadopoulos is arrested at the airport. October 5th, Papadopoulos pleads guilty to making false statements. October 27th, Trump tweets, it is now commonly agreed after many months of costly looking that there was no collusion between Russia and Trump. Okay. October 30th, the Papadopoulos case is unsealed along with indictment of Manafort and partner Rick Gates for financial crimes and conspiracy against the United States. October 31st, Trump tweets, a former great guy, Papadopoulos. A few people knew the young, low-level volunteer named George, who has already proven to be a liar. Yeah. That is the timeline. Trust me, more will be added to this timeline weekly. I just stopped at October. It's so much more to add to that. How did we get here? How did we get here? Woo-wee. I ain't going long. I'm not going long at all. I'm just trying to help y'all out. How did we get here? Black folks came out to, yeah, I know they did. Yes. Black people came out to vote like crazy because they remembered Doug Jones was responsible for prosecuting and putting at peace and rest many of us who had to witness these 4 little girls bombed to death in the church by these KKKs and Doug Jones, who Donald Trump said is weak on crime, finally sought justice. We didn't hear that from Roy Moore. All we heard about Roy Moore was his sexual proclivities. I don't know the word. How did we get here? The Bible talks about there is nothing new under the sun. Okay? What has happened, what getting ready to happen has happened, and vice versa. You have to go to the book of Ecclesiastes. All right? There is 2 Americas, just like there's 2 type of believers in Christianity. Well, not Christianity. In the kingdom of God, there's 2. There's the Jew and the Gentile. In America, there's a republic and there is the Democrat. And I'm not talking about the republic for which we stand. I'm not talking about that. Okay? And we say that we're part of a democratic republic. All right? That's what the United States is supposed to be. But we're really an oligarch. Okay? That's a whole nother show. All right? We're not a republic. We're not a democratic system. We are an oligarch. All right. In 1854, this party called, well, before that, it was called the Whig Party, WH, I think it is, IG. They were the ones who could not get along with each other in the 1800s. America is paying for its founding. Its foundation, it is paying for it for what it has done. The people wanted sin, so that voted for that. Come on, Phyllis. That's exactly what it is. This is a Saul situation, a king that they wanted. and the Whig Party could not get along, and so it busted up because they couldn't figure this whole thing out about slavery and freedmen's and things like that, and it got busted up. Meanwhile, the Democratic Party had already been going for strong, especially in the South. The Whig was in the North. The Republican Party started and was formed in about 1854, and they put a man in the helm by the name of Abraham Lincoln. He was an abolitionist. That party was about abolitionists, and they were put together to help get rid of this thing called slavery. But they only did it more so because they wanted to keep the Union together. And you got to go into the Kansas, Nebraska Act and all that stuff. For those of you who studied your history, they wanted to get rid of slavery to keep the Union together. The southern states succeeded from the Union, and they formed the Confederate States of America. That's why we see these flags all over the place in the South. And Abraham Lincoln and the Republican Party said, we want to get rid of this thing, but if we could keep slavery and keep the Union, we would do that too. Are y'all understanding any of what I'm saying? Okay? And so, many, if not all, black people were part of the Republican Party, of course, especially after the Emancipation Proclamation and the Civil Rights Bill of the 1866, I think it is, all right? Black people were Republicans. That's just the way it was. And we were Republicans for 100 years, okay? Most of us. But what happened was the Democratic Party gave us the Ku Klux Klan. They gave us Jim Crow laws. They gave us the strange fruit of the hanging of the trees, okay? The Democratic Party did that. The Democratic Party tried to keep slavery going hard and strong in the South. That's why many black people were Republicans. They joined forces with that whole free slave thing. You get me? Okay. But what happened was, cotton was king in the South, but the Industrial Revolution was king in the North, and these white Republicans began to make a lot of money in the North, and capitalism was strong among them. So what did they do? They abandoned their forthright or their intensity on keeping freedmen, giving them civil rights and making them equal with white people. They abandoned that whole thing and began to make money, and they began to hold on to that whole thing. And of course the stock market did a little thing. It crashed. By the time that it crashed, though, when you get into the 1920s, 1929, we had a president by the name of FDR, Franklin Delano Roosevelt, and it was because of his vice president more so than him. He began to create this New Deal, and a whole bunch of black folks left the Republican Party to join forces with the New Deal because it was benefiting the black people. Everybody didn't jump over yet. Just a few people jumped over and joined FDR. From 1929 through the New Deal, all the way through the 1930s, through the 1940s and 50s, you begin to see Jim Crow intensify. And so this became more so of a South-North situation, not so much of a political situation. It was a race situation. All right. By the time the 1960s came in, a repeat of what the 1860s did popped up again. And we had a Democratic president by the name of Lyndon Baines Johnson, who promised through the begging of sorts and the willing and dealings of our civil rights leader, including Martin Luther King, Rosa Parks, and what she did in the 1950s with the boycott thing, he decided to tackle this thing because the Kennedys attempted to do it, but they was too caught up into their little things, and they kind of tapped on it, but they was too afraid to really go forward in it, so they left it alone. And LBJ, the vice president, after the assassination of Kennedy, he decided to tackle the Civil Rights Bill of 1964. Barry Goldwater was a Republican, and we knew who he was. We were getting ready to vote for him, but he went against the Civil Rights Bill because he had such a Southern influence, and black people got a little upset about that, and they jumped ship. They left the Republican Party in droves and joined forces with this Democrat, the same party who tried to keep them enslaved. They joined forces with the Democratic Party because they saw the Democratic Party making a change, a shift. And they joined forces with the Civil Rights Bill. And the poor people's campaign, not poor people's campaign, the war on poverty, which is another LBJ thing, which is another trick. If that's a whole nother thing, okay? And so before you knew it, 90% of all African Americans around the country were Democrats, especially leading up into the 70s and 80s. And then what happened was the Republican Party, just like here in Chicago, when black people started moving into the neighborhoods here, white people began to move out. They kept saying, there goes the neighborhood, and it was white flight. The great migration of black people moved up, and the white people flew into the suburbs. You still with me? Okay. And then what they did was they voted for a man by the name of Ronald Reagan, who believed in small government. Big business, but small government. So black folk had stayed Democrat, and then what happened was the whites who were Republicans jumped ship like we did, and they became mostly, they jumped Democrat and became mostly Republican, okay? These same whites that were Democrat, they jumped ship and became Republicans. That's why you see mostly Republicans in the Southern Belt. You get it? So, is the Democratic Party the same Democratic Party in the 1800s? No, it is not. Is the Republican Party the same party that was in the 1800s? No, it is not. And most Republicans will tell you that what I just said is a lie. Well, of course they're going to tell you that because they're part of the tribe. I was a registered Republican years ago. Straight conservative. I'm a conservative independent now, and I do not vote straight ticket. I didn't even vote for the great Barack Obama twice. I didn't vote for him. Why? Because I stood for certain morals. And what he stood for, I wasn't for, and those two things were important to me. Gay marriage and abortion. I don't know how you can be a Christian and vote for men or women who rally so hard against that which you preach in your Bible. I know y'all keep saying, well, we didn't vote for a pastor in chief. I know you didn't. But you mean tell me the Christian community is not that strong? You're not that influential enough to put a person up against the immorals of the country? Are you that weak that you have to vote for this man because the world is voting for this man? As powerful as look at the white evangelicals. You see how powerful they are? Who do you think got Donald Trump in there? You see how powerful they are? Who do you think got Ronald Reagan in the office? Those were white conservative evangelicals. The problem is there is still a horrible racial divide in America. Blacks are Christians, whites are Christians. I'm talking about the ones that are Christians. And on Sunday, it's the most segregated day of the week. Because even though we are all Christians, the ones that are Christians, black and whites, we still can't worship together. One Lord, one faith, one baptism. We can say that all day long. We're part of one kingdom. All this stuff. But on Sunday, we're separated in our churches. which means everything we do is separated. We live in separated neighborhoods, and we go to separated schools. We're part of different and separated fraternities and sororities, okay? We're separated in pretty much everything, so we separate our God. And the Apostle Paul says, you know, and Paul and Silas and all these other people like, well, I didn't die for you. I mean, I don't understand that. So, because we're the divided states of America, of course in politics, it's going to be the same way. That's why slavery lasted as long as it did. That's why Jim Crow lasted as long as it did. That's why the whole Barry Goldwater thing and the whole Civil Rights Bill ended up the way it did. And that's why we leap, instead of us joining and forming a party of unified force, we did this. We did what Manasseh and Ephraim, okay? That's what their grandfather did, this whole thing. When he went to bless them, he took his right hand and blessed the wrong child. And he did that and blessed the wrong child, okay? And it wasn't the wrong child. God told him to do that. But his son was like, Pops, no, no, no. He took his hand and says, and the father says, I know what I'm doing. Do y'all understand that story? Okay? So this is a problem that has been in America since there was an America. We started off wrong. We started off in sin, and those who framed the Constitution of the United States, none of them that I can think of were true Christians. They weren't part of a particular kingdom. They left, we left the same tyranny that we're putting the American people into. We walked away from that. The king of Brit, we walked away from the taxation without representation and the Tea Party, not Tea Party, but the Boston Tea thing and all this stuff. They walked away from that and faced persecution, and many of them faced death and what have you. And the White House was burned down in the War of 1812 and all these. I'm a nerd, I'm sorry, y'all. And America went through that just to get our independence, all right? And we formed the 13 colonies, but how did we form them? We formed them by when we came over here, somebody was already here. And there's a people called the conquistadors. You might want to go ahead and Google them. All right, so America had done some things. They walked away and prayed to God and says, help us become independent. And they came over here and uprooted a people and put blankets over them with smallpox on it and tried to wipe them out. And then they began to vote in men and call them presidents of the United States. And one was Andrew, I think his name Jackson, who's on your $20 bill. And he tried to annihilate the very people who were here before, these Native Americans, and put them on what's called a trail of tears, all right? But we celebrate, we honor them, okay? These men and women, these men, that is, they were all men, presidents were. And it's amazing that every president that I can think of, from the first one all the way up, probably to Clinton's, and some things that Clinton said showed you that he still got some Arkansasan racial tendencies in him, all the way up to Clinton and Bush. Bigot. Every president that we ever had, all the way up, I think the Bush had some bigotry in them. All of them. Every single last one of them. Why? We take on the form or the spirit of our leaders. Donald Trump has set a precedence, and everybody who he hired into his administration took on his spirit. It took on. Why do you think they're dropping, falling one by one? And why he's standing? God is in the game. I'm telling you, God is in the game. And these men are dropping, and he's still standing. Watch what happens. Oh, I want to talk about some stuff. I just can't do it on this one right here, because I got to do a show on Jerusalem. See, I already took my advertisement down. I'm going to talk about why is this thing that Donald Trump did on Jerusalem so important. Why was he able to, like that, say, all right, Jerusalem is now the capital of Israel, and then the fights happen? Why? That's a whole show, okay? So the United States is on its last legs. It is no coincidence that Bitcoin leaped like it did. It had been around for a while. Cryptocurrency been around for a few years now. Bitcoin is just one of several. But it's no coincidence that it's doing what it's doing. Why? We're setting a stage. Fossil fuel is about to leave here. And people are talking about electric cars and electric this and self-driving stuff. Oh, y'all better pay close attention. Pay close attention. This fiat, I've done shows, too many shows on the fiat, that's that dollar bill. It's going to be worth less. Okay? You like worth less what? Worth less. That's what. This thing here called the dollar bill ain't going to be worth nothing, and you won't be able to exchange it with nothing around the world. Oh, it's coming. So it's no coincidence. Pay attention whether you invest in the stock market or not. Pay attention to that fiat because it's going to go away. It's going to be a system that's going to be exchange value that everybody's going to use, and it won't be something that you hold in your hand. But that's temporary. Okay? Matter of fact, many of you operate in a cashless society right now. You don't carry cash. You carry your Visa. You carry your cash checking card or whatever it is, okay? Many of you, some of you write checks, some of you don't. You just carry that card wherever you go. And somebody asks you for $1, you say, I ain't got it, I got it. You go out to the store, you go out to the restaurants with your friends, there's always a card. Nobody can pay cash at the table. Can't nobody give a tip to the waitress in cash because everybody got cards. Why? You're doing that to yourself. You're setting the precedent. It's not a secret society that's doing it. You doing it, and they're feeding into what you are doing. Before you know it, there will be a system. There will be one. But don't forget about gold. Don't forget about it. You may not be hearing about it. It may seem like it went away and all this stuff. And okay. Oh, but I mentioned Ecclesiastes. Remember I told you that? Oh, God's clock is different on your Facebook Live because it's backwards. But God's clock, it doesn't operate like our clock. No, he doesn't start at 12 o'clock and go 1, 2, 3. No, God starts at 12 and go 11, 10, 9. God's clock is counted clock. So what happened in Bible days in antiquity and the way it was with precious metals and things like that, trust me, the day is going to come when they have to go back to that. Now, will we be around? I don't know. But they have to. That's another show. That is the question I had, why? And more than that, how? Veronica, I missed your... I don't know where I was saying when you asked that question. I'm not sure. I'm doing because I got carjacked and I got $21. At least I can cancel debit. Yeah. Yeah. And let me tell you something. Joe Hill said Democrats and Republicans. That's pretty good, Joe. Okay, let me tell you, Raymond. I rarely carry cash. I rarely carry cash myself, all right? Not for no particular reason I don't carry cash. It's just that almost everything, I get paid by whoever. Whoever gives me money is usually never cash. It's the cash app. It's a check. It's direct deposit. So because I don't get cash, everything goes straight to my bank account, okay? Or it sits in my PayPal or sits on my phone app because it all goes that way. Or Uber don't send you no cash in the mail. So because it all goes that way, I rarely ever go to the ATM to withdraw cash. I just don't do it. If I go to the ATM, I'm always depositing a check. but I'm never taking cash out. So I don't really carry cash that much, like the rest of you. All right. So we're all do that, and it's just not safe, because if somebody steal $50 from you cash, you can't get that back. But if somebody steal your Visa card and they got $50 on it, you can get that back. Trust me, that happened to me several times, and the bank says, "Here your money." Matter of fact, somebody went to the ATM. I got a new account at a bank, and I didn't know you can't use your temporary card to make deposits until your bank has they put you on timeout for about 2 weeks or something. I didn't know that, so I put a check in the ATM with that card, and the thing kept buffering, and it buffered for 30 minutes. I sat there, I'm like, you got to be kidding me. And so I called the bank and says, listen, this thing, they says, don't worry about it. Hopefully it took their thing. I says, well, are you sure? They says, yeah, and hopefully they did it. And I went home. I woke up that next morning, and $200 had been taken out of my account. And I knew exactly what happened. Somebody drove up after me after I pulled up and saw my account wide open. Saw it wide open, and it says, I'm going to take some money out of this man's account. Thank you, whoever you are, and grabbed $200 out of there and took my card and went on about their business. Now, these idiots didn't realize, or maybe they did, I don't know, but there's a camera right there at the ATM. How dumb. Well, I had to file a report. I said, that's your fault, bank man, because you told me leave it alone and walk away. And you know what they did? They gave me that $200 back. You see what I'm saying? But if I had sat $200 cash there and walked away, the bank won't give me that money back. And that's just the way it works, y'all. In terms of 45 having the ability to change anything, that's not America. But I will wait until your show in Jerusalem. I won't miss that one. Veronica, yeah, don't miss that one. My show on Jerusalem is going to help you understand why it is important that this man did what he did, why the timing was both good and bad. What's going to be the ramifications of him doing this, and did it usher us into the end times? The obvious answer is yes, it did. And why is such a beef between the Israelites and the Palestinians? It's all in history, and we'll talk about it. You may not find it in your Bible. Much of it you will find in Scripture, that's for sure. But the whole thing with the Palestinians, no, not really. Okay? All right. So the next step is Doug Moore, 50%, I see here. Roy Moore, 48%. Doug Jones, of course, is the apparent winner as of the time of this thing here. I didn't want to come on anytime earlier, because you know what happened to Donald Trump. Okay, he just issued a tweet, surprisingly, said congratulations to Doug Jones on such a hard-fought victory. He says, what do you say? Then he says the write-in votes played a very big factor, but a win is a win. You see, that is the Donald Trump, that is the shade of the Donald Trumpism. Watch how he talks, okay? That's part of his narcissistic way. It always hanging out over here. And whatever he says, whatever he does, I don't care how much pomp and circumstance it is. I don't care how much of on the cue he have to be, whether he's reading from the little teleprompters or what have you. He's got to insert this. It comes out of him. The narcissistic, it comes out. It's got to come out, and he fights it. And you can see him pause whenever he's speaking, and that has to have a voice. It speaks. It's like that shirt that I think is what's that Tide commercial where there's a stain on the shirt. I think the shirt was this color. I can't remember. The stain was on the shirt, and the man is talking to another man, and the man is talking and talking, but the man who's hearing me talk hears blah, 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 because the stain had a mouth. And the more I'm talking to the man, the more my stain is talking, because the stain is a distraction. Blah, 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 and I'm talking about stock tips, and all that man can hear is blah, 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 because my stain is so big, okay? It would be like a wart on my nose, okay? You're talking to me business, but you keep looking at that wart. That's Donald Trump. he's got that thing over here that it sits over here below his brain, and he's got to interject himself. He's reading a very important piece of paper, and then he sees something in the teleprompter that says rocket or something, and then he stops. It triggers something in him. He says, Rocket Man. He's talking about North Korea. He can't stop himself. And you guys went to your pastors went to the polls to vote for this man. Why? Because they were joining forces with the tribe. See, the enemy of mine enemy is my friend. They voted, your pastors did, for Donald Trump because he promised that he would do some things for the church. When he brought church in there, it showed the gullibility of Christians, especially African Americans, and especially white evangelicals. Oh man, I know y'all say, here he go again. Yes, here I am again. One of the most, the group that is the most gullible that I know are believers. No matter what color. The most gullible. Again, how you think we got this man in office? The most gullible. If a man walk into your church right now and speak a certain way, he could win many of the people in your church by saying certain phrases. And he will win the men over first before he win the men over. He would win the women over first before he win the men over. Number one, because ain't a whole lot of men at your church. Number two, men think a little differently, and they don't usually fall for the emotionalism of someone's sales pitch. They just don't. Am I right, Philip Riddle? I know you know what I'm talking about. We don't really fall for the emotional sales pitch. That's why when the salesman come to the house, he is hoping that the wife is there. If the man answers the door, the salesman will say, is there a Mrs.? Why? Because he know that he could get on the emotional aspect of the wife so that the wife could speak that emotion to her husband. Children are used the same way. When the children are taken to the grocery store put all of the sugary, unhealthy cereals on the floor. Why? Because the kids are about this tall, and the kids use their emotion to pull on the coattail of mama and say, Mama, 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 can I have Frosted Flakes? Mama, Mama, Mama. All right. Okay. So when men go into these churches, that's why certain sermons, women remember them, because they're built off of the emotion of the woman. Woman, they're out loose. No more sheets. Y'all remember those sermons, and you look at those conventions, is 85% women in those audience falling out over the emotional aspect of those sermons. That's why at nighttime you turn on Peter Popoff and all these infomercials on Jesus juice and oil and all, and Mediterranean water. Look at the audience. African American women. Look at Jim Jones, who had all those people to drink that Kool-Aid on Guyana. Look at those old tapes. Mostly black women. Look at the prophets who come to town. I ain't saying no names. And they come to town and they call people down in the audience. Notice he will pick out mostly the women. And he will say a certain phrase because he knows every woman in that church house can identify with that pain. Not the brothers. That's why all these prophets, not all, many of them use the same type of tactic to work on the emotion of you, because most of you have suffered in relationships the same way. I know I'm right, and I don't care. what you think about me. All right? So the most gullible people that I know of a sect, of a group, are Christians. So politicians come to your church to campaign, and they'll drop some familiar terms that you identify with, and you'll say, surely this must be the man for the job. The prophet came to Jethro, is that his name? Who was David's father? I'm saying Jethro, it ain't Jethro. What's his name? And he walked in there with all that man's sons, and he saw the first son, who was tall and good looking. And he says, surely this must be the one I'm supposed to anoint. Samuel said that, and I think and then God spoke to him, says, that ain't him. That ain't him. Why? That ain't him. God says, you look on the outward appearance, he says, but I look on the heart of a man. Don't get captivated by the smooth, charismatic caricature of men or women. Because once that happens, they pull you in like Pied to the piper. And where do we see this in history? Donald Trump said, build the wall. Build a wall. Don't let no more of them folk over here build the wall and drain the swamp. And those gullible evangelicals and some black pastors ran and fell into his lap and put him up over the top. And now is buyer's remorse. Yes. Yep. What you saying, Opal? You look at the candidate's complete platform. Yeah, you preaching. You preaching. Okay? He is telling the truth. Women ride on emotions more so. But you look at it. He brought all those people in. Donald Trump became a Pied Piper for those who are believers because they heard him say one thing, and that one thing was the thing that they are for. All this other stuff Donald Trump did, they did this. They ignored it. Why you think Roy Moore got so high in the polls? Because they says, okay, he's an immoral man, yes, but we need him because we got this one thing we need to accomplish. So what did the evangelicals do? They compromised their moral beliefs for that which was natural. And God always speaks after a group of his own children make these mistakes. To receive something natural, Christians walk away or compromise that which is morally sound. We walk away from that so that we can obtain the house, the car, the position, and things like that. It says, I'll repent later. So we walk away from that. And when we do that as a group of people, God speaks. Absolutely. God always has wanted us to fill the earth with no borders. I know. How is that possible, again, that we have two churches? How is that possible? It's amazing. African Americans, we don't own anything. We haven't produced anything over many years. Black Wall Street died. So all we've been talking about for all these years is we should be doing this, we should be doing that. And we're going to be talking about we should be for the next 50, 100 years. We should be. But we don't. Because your brothers open up a business in your neighborhood and then it failed in the next 30, 60, 90, 120 days. Why? Because you won't shop there because Walmart just opened up another shop up the street. This man closes down. Then you say, what happened to that shop over there? He can't. He can't survive because of the culture of our people. Divide and conquer. Here in Chicago, we're going through this whole nother cycle of gentrification. And it's happening in most of the major cities around the world. And wake up. You better start buying. Your neighborhood might be jacked up right now. Sorry, phone rang. You better buy. I suggest you buy now. Let me go. That was my daughter calling, and when daughter calls, everything must stop. All right. Hit the rewind button if you didn't see this at the beginning. Hit the share button if you're on Facebook. Hit the subscribe button if you're on YouTube. YouTube hate this. I'm going to get all kind of thumbs down, and they're going to call me nigger. They're going to call me you racist, you this. YouTube ain't liking this whatsoever. And guess what? I don't care. You think I care? Deatrice, you think I care? Lishima? What do you think, Dean? Vicky and Cortez, you think I care? Loretta, come on, help me out. Lamar, you know, your whole family, you think I care? Jermaine, Vanessa, Kraft, you think I care? Y'all already can answer that for me, right? You know I don't care. Has the position of the evangelical put a stain on the church? The position of the evangelical? You mean like the evangelicals? Help me out with that. Be a little more specific, Philip, because I think I know where you're going. Because our witness is in trouble. Because Christians have been, it's lukewarm now to say that I'm a Christian. Everybody's a Christian now. The word evangelical came after the word fundamentalist kind of died down. So when you hear evangelical, you usually hear white. It would be like, gosh, even in our music, even in gospel, we even have two award shows. For instance, we have the Stellars, they have the Doves. We had Soul Train, and they had American Bandstand. We've got gospel, traditional, or whatever you call it, contemporary, and they have CCM, and we have R&B gospel. I guess there's more pop, okay, which is fine because that's the way rhythmically that's the way they create the music. There's nothing wrong with that. But in all this other stuff, it's divided. So to be an evangelical, when you hear that, when you hear evangelical, you hear or you see white. And the world sees it as gullible. And they say, I don't want to ever join that religion. Look at them down in Alabama. It's sad. And it doesn't speak for all of them, but unfortunately, it's hard to pick them out. When I lived in South Dakota, it was hard to convince the white people there that I was a safe guy. I wasn't going to rob the women on the street and snatch their purses. It was hard. Why? I'm all black. The only thing that wasn't black on me was the whites of my eyes. So, it was hard. Evangelical today has a different meaning than it did before. Okay, all right. Yeah, tell them, bring it on. Siding with Jones. Oh, bless you. Okay. So, yeah. I don't care. All right. Y'all got any more beef? Let me know, and I'll see if I can put some ham in there and mix it up and send it to people who really, you know, care. But it looks like Roland Martin is going strong, so I might turn Roland Martin on and see what he's talking about. I listen to some more of the CC, Fox, and everybody else, see what they're saying about it. And you can use this as a history lesson because, again, I'd like to this week talk about Jerusalem. And why did Donald Trump do what he did? Because I'm going to give you a hint. The Lord is using the dysfunction of Donald Trump to get this done. Hear me. I say this and shut it down. The Lord is using the dysfunction of that man. He knew y'all were going to vote for him. He knew it. And the destruction and the chaos that's going to happen, especially in the book of Revelation. The chaos. God is going to have his hand in it, and he's going to be the one pushing buttons. Pushing buttons. You're like, God? Him? Yes. He's going to be the one pushing those buttons and causing that chaos. Okay? Satan's going to come down. Y'all think he's here right now? Oh boy. Jesus said, I saw Satan fall like lightning, and I believe in my heart of hearts he was prophesying. He says, I see him falling. When you get to the book of Revelation, see, I'm going to have to do that study. He physically then comes down here and sets up his unholy trinity. It would be Satan, the false prophet, and the Antichrist, and then they're going to set up their kingdom here on the earth. So they're not here right now, because if they were, it'd be crazy. You couldn't survive it. He's going to set that up. God's going to allow it to happen. Jesus says, I see him falling like lightning. Bam! They're going to set up his kingdom, and then he's going to make you guys take up these marks that you've been talking about. You can't buy or sell anything without it. Now, I ain't going to be here, so I'll be praying for y'all. All right? They're shutting down Roland Martin. They are? Cortez? Who's shutting them down? His watchers? The people who are watching it on the show? Lord have mercy. I can't wait to see that. I can't see it. Philip, what do you mean? Siding with Roy Moore? Oh, you mean the evangelicals siding with Roy Moore? Ooh, man. I don't know if I said this earlier. We're saying Israel is an important instrument in the end-time prophecy. Follow the Middle East, and you will know where. Yes, that's it. Quickly, Philip Riddle. Yeah. This is going to hurt the evangelicals who followed Roy Moore, knowing many of them felt that he did do these things. There's some proof here and there. They knew he did it, but they sided with him. And if he had got in the office, if he had won that Senate seat, it would have been still a bigger loss. See, it's a loss for the Republican Party now, but it would have been a bigger loss if he had won. Why? Because y'all let this man sit in the Senate. Now we got to have investigation. That's what they were talking about. It says if he wins, now we've got to investigate him, put him up, have a what they call that thing? The committee to sit and talk and figure out what we're going to do with this man. See, politics is crazy because America would not have voted for Roy Moore, didn't vote for Roy Moore. The Alabamians voted for him. But once Alabama votes for a man and puts him in the Senate, now he belongs to the country. You see what I'm saying? Then the ethics committee has got to come and deal with him see, they can't touch him as long as he's running. But once he sits in the Senate seat, now he's not an Alabamian. He's a senator of the country. Even though he represents Alabama, he now has more power because now his vote can make a huge difference on what the president says or does, if that makes any sense. So the committee got to say, we got to sit him down. The ethics committee can say, censure him. Okay? It's a big ball of fire. Let me go. All right. TV1 station is shutting him down by the end of the year. Oh, are they? Oh, okay. Well, Cortez, let's talk about that because I don't know what's going on there. All right. I love you guys. Thank you for tuning in. I appreciate it. And that's it for me. That's all, folks. I'll upload this tomorrow on YouTube. You got 1 hour of American history. Hey, who you think I am? A nerd or somebody? Actually, I am. Sir Walter Jones Show.